O in the chat if you'd like to say your name, your age, where you're viewing from. We'd love to be able to give you a shout out for sure. We'll give everybody just a moment and then we will get started. We have two very important guests with us today and a really cool experiment. I cannot wait to get started with you all. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself in the chat. Hi there, Jacob. Hi there, Lucy and Sophia and Alice and Hazel. We are so happy to see you all here. I'm really excited for this one. Hi there, Esther and Ivy and Caitlin. Hi there, Adam, and hi there, Caitlin. Hi there, Will. It's so good to see you all. It is so good to see those familiar names. It's almost like a familiar face. Hi there, Hampton. Oh, you're back from Little Lab. Hi there. All right, friends, let's go ahead and get started. We have a whole lot of really exciting stuff to go over today. So welcome to Lab at Home with the Museum of Life and Science. We hope that all of you will help lead our program with your questions, thoughts, and ideas in the chat box. We have Max moderating the chat today. And we also have two very special guests here to talk to us. We have Dr. Drs Westman and we have Dr. Drs Fisher. Dr. Martin Fisher. Beautiful. So we're really excited to have them on today. But before we talk to them, I wanted to talk to all of you. What are we talking about today in Lab at Home? You might even notice something a little bit different with me today. This isn't something that I usually broadcast with. What do you think? What do you notice? What do you think? What do I have on that's a little bit different? Yeah, exactly. I have a mask on. And Dr. Eric and Dr. Martin also have their masks on. We're talking about masks today and kind of what the role of masks is in slowing the spread of the novel coronavirus of COVID-19, right? So do you all have masks that you wear out? I think that both Dr. Eric and Dr. Martin were kind of showing me some of their collection. Can we take a look at some of those that you had? Dr. Martin, I thought I heard that you sewed that one yourself. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely, Peregrine. This is a homemade mask. We actually went to the fabric store and we actually had one to look at because I'm not the expert sewer. So I looked at how other people do this. It looked very nice. We had two layers when it's white on the inside. I have some green ones, some red ones. And the reason that I wear these is they're nice and comfortable. And if you wear them the whole day, if I'm in the lab the whole day, and you really want something that you can wear the whole time. If you have a mask that's very, very tight, it might be nice, but after an hour or so, it's all scratchy, you want to get rid of it. And there's nice, comfortable masks that do the job well and you keep them on.
Mine is pretty comfy too. It's kind of a nice soft material. What about you, Dr. Eric?
Well, this is one I don't wear at work. This one's for home. My Batman superpower mask. At work, I wear a hospital surgical mask in a clinical setting when I'm seeing patients at the clinic. But I wear these kind of cotton ones when I'm at home, going to the grocery store, things like that. And you have to have a little fun with it, I think,
I agree. I think it can be a way for us to express ourselves as well. It sounds like a lot of our friends in the chat have masks that they wear. And we're talking a little bit about why. What do you think? What do you think, friends viewing at home? Why do we wear masks? And kind of while we're thinking about that idea, we'll kind of start talking about, right, where we're in some, people always call them unprecedented times and interesting times, right? We're talking about the coronavirus pandemic, which is something that's totally, that's really new to all of us. It makes things really different for us in our everyday lives. And yeah, I really like this. We're saying that we wear masks because we want to stop the germs. We want to catch spit. I like that. That's really good. So we don't spread germs. Yeah, and to keep us safe and to keep other people safe. So what does a mask do? I thought we could give that question to Dr. Eric. What is it about a mask or about spit? That was an interesting one that that makes a mask so helpful to us.
Yeah, and you might even ask, why is a doctor talking about masks and doing studies on it? Well, because of infection. The answers are great. So a lot of infections, like a cold and a flu, infections get spread by coughing and sneezing. And if you wear a mask, you'll reduce the spread of these kinds of diseases. I mean, it's kind of like just covering your face when you cough, which is, a polite thing to do anyway. It's making sure that, because now there's something really contagious and really more serious, it's important to wear a mask when you have a time when there is a virus like one going around. But I was interested in becoming a doctor for a lot of reasons. One is because I liked looking in microscopes and seeing things that I couldn't see with my eye. I liked telescopes and binoculars, and so what we're dealing with is something we can't see with our own eye. And it's interesting because a lot of people won't believe it because they don't see it with their own eyes. But so I partnered with a real scientist, Martin, Dr. Martin, and because I'm more as a medical doctor. I mean, we wash hands, we cover our mouths, things like that. We don't think about looking in the microscope anymore. We just learned that this is something you do. You scrub and you put a mask on when you go in and do an operation on someone, for example, so that we don't get infection to the person we're operating on. So really a mask does two things. Like you've said, it protects you, but it also protects other people from you. And so if you don't know that you're sick, you might make someone else sick without knowing it. Now, when I contacted Dr. Martin earlier this year, we heard a rumor that you could just talk and spread the disease. And we were kind of skeptical. We didn't really believe that because, you don't really see anything. So Dr. Martin set up an experiment where I was speaking in front of a box that had a laser through it, and I could see the particles coming out of my mouth. So when I was just breathing there was nothing in this box. But I started, we said, stay healthy, people, stay healthy, people. And the box started lighting up with all the particles from my mouth. Even though I couldn't see them with my eye, the laser allowed me, kind of like using a microscope, to see them. So I'm convinced now that, yes, we can spread an infectious disease by just talking to other people. And how loud you talk, how much you yell, and all that matters. Like singing can spread. So anyway, that's how I got into this. I was just curious: is it really true that we can just speak and spread a disease like this? And well, we'll tell you what we did, and maybe you'll see if you're convinced too.
And I think that's a great case, right? That we should always be looking for the evidence, that we should always kind of be critical of ideas and see what ways that we can test them. I should also, before we even go any further, right, we'll talk a little bit more about these kind of particles, these droplets, after I have my esteemed guests kind of introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about what they do, for sure.
I forgot to tell you that I'm Dr. Westman, and I work at Duke in the medical clinics. So when people are sick or they want to improve their lifestyle and get better, I see them and help them do that. I don't operate on people anymore, but I did when I was in medical school some years ago. But so I work at Duke, and I'm a doctor there.
That's wonderful. And Dr. Martin, what about you?
So first of all, I'm going to take this off real quick so people can actually understand me. I'm alone in the office here. I'm at home, so it's safe to do. Don't do this in your grocery store, guys. So I'm Martin Fisher. I also work at Duke. I'm in the chemistry and physics department. So I don't wear a white coat. So I'm not on the medical side. I'm the scientist. I'm the geek among us here. I like to tinker. So what I usually do in my normal life, I go to the lab, I look at very tiny things. So things like like cells in a body, or even things that are smaller than cells. And I developed technologies to really look at these things in detail, to make them visible. Again, what Dr. Eric said, I want to look at stuff that you can't see by eye, but that are important. I also developed techniques that you can actually see underneath things. So for example, your skin, right? I mean, you can see the surface of the skin, but the surface isn't exactly where things happen. And you probably know that you shed your skin all the time. The skin comes off, right? The stuff that's on top, that's not really the important ones. That's already sort of dead and coming off. What you really want to see is underneath, where these cells grow. So I developed techniques to look underneath the surface, not only at skin, but also at, for example, paintings. We collaborate with the North Carolina Museum of Art to investigate some of their colors in the paintings, and how they are layered, how they look, what they are, and how they actually also degrade. A painting can get sick just like a human, so the colors can change, and we look at things like that. So that's my natural connection to the project, looking at masks, because as Dr. Eric mentioned, the little germs and the spit that comes out of you, sometimes you can't see it, but that doesn't mean that it's not there and that it's not dangerous. So we used optical techniques, fancy lasers, to actually make these droplets visible. And as Dr. Eric pointed out, you see this dark box and you speak into it, and suddenly you see these flashes of light. Sort of compare this to the case where you're in the dark room and it's light outside, but you close your curtain almost all the way, so you see this sliver of light coming in, and then you take a pillow and you whack the pillow, right? And close to the light sheet, and there's stuff coming off the pillow, stuff that you probably don't know it's on there. It's partly stuff of your skin is on there. There's hair on there. There's cookie crumbs probably on there. And as soon as these things go into the light, you see little flashes. And that's exactly what we do in our experiment. We count the little flashes of light that you see when droplets from your mouth fly through the light. And of course, we don't sit there and look at the video and we count them manually, right? That would be a long thing to do. We have thousands and thousands of those video pictures. We have a little program. We wrote a program that goes through and looks frame by frame, every little bit, every little image in the video. It counts it automatically. And then we count the number of little droplets that come out of your mouth with or without the mask. And that tells us how efficient the mask is at blocking these droplets.
I loved the kind of the metaphor that you brought up, and that's something that I've done too. And I wanted to ask if any of our viewers have done this. Have you ever kind of seen the little teeny tiny pieces of dust kind of floating in the air when you're looking through a bright window? Is that kind of what you were talking about?
Absolutely.
I love that, because I do that all the time. It's fascinating to watch these tiny little pieces of dust floating, and that's a similar idea, as you were saying, to the laser that you developed to look at these droplets. Now. Mm-hmm. Of course, we won't be able to see on either in front of us or on the camera how big our own droplets are, right? But we can use a tool, and I've got one right here. I don't know if any of you at home are participating, but I have a little sprayer. And if you have a sprayer, I want you to point it maybe away from your computer, but I want you to kind of watch what happens when we spray it and tell me what you observe. What do you think? What were you able to see? Dr. Eric and Dr. Martin, what did you guys see?
Well, I see lots of stuff coming out of that sprayer.
I see a lot of mist. Yeah, exactly. Some mist coming out. These droplets are big enough. The ones coming out of our mouth, right? They're so small we don't really see them, but it can show us the idea of how these droplets linger in the air for a little while. So if I do something like sneeze, like Dr. Eric was talking about earlier, if I sneeze, achoo, into my hand, even if I cover my mouth, we can see that droplets still kind of escape through my fingers, around my hand. If I cough into my elbow, maybe it's a little better, achoo, achoo. But we still get a little bit of spray, which is where we come to the idea of a mask. And this isn't a very rigorous test, but I have a mask here, and we can kind of see the idea that if I spray my mister at it, right, it comes off the top and the bottom, but it doesn't come through. You can see there's kind of a whole cone where it's kept in there. So I have another experiment that I wanted to do with you all that is similar to that, and maybe illustrates some of what the amazing technology that both Dr. Aaron and Dr. Martin have been using to visualize these droplets. But first I wanted to get to some of your questions for our scientists here. So we had a really good question from Heather, which is how far and how long did the molecules travel in the box, or the little pieces, the droplets? Did you measure them with and without the mask on?
So we actually just measured how many droplets, how many particles come out of your mouth. We didn't study where they go, right? As long as they come out of your mouth and they come through the mask or around the mask, that's when we said, okay, we see them. We don't really follow them because we breathe we speak in a box, right? So eventually the particles will maybe stick to the sides, or maybe they get sort of blown out of the box. But it's a very, very important question, right? Because measuring what comes out of you, that's only the first step. The next step is, well, once they're out, where do they go? If you have a big spitooey particle, that particle might, a droplet, especially when you sneeze, that one might come out and drop to the floor, right? Well, it might not be so bad, right? People step on it, but no harm done. Now, if it's a really, really tiny particle, like the dust you see floating around in the air, right? Those particles, those little tiny droplets, they might actually stick around for quite a long time. They might hover. A little bit of air comes by and carries them away, maybe to your next door neighbor, right? That's not where you want it to be. And that if that neighbor doesn't happen to wear a mask, he might breathe those in, and then you might be in trouble, right? But we didn't check where the particles go. We just measure them once they come out. But it's a very, very good question, and it's a completely it's a very difficult question because it depends on so many things. Depends on whether you're inside, whether you're outside, whether it's windy, gusty, whether it rained, all these kind of things. They're very important questions.
It sounds like the whole experiment comes from a little bit of both of your areas of expertise. Now, I was wondering, before we kind of do our version of your experiment, if you could tell us a little bit how you got started and how you started to work together on this project.
Sure.
In our area in Durham, we didn't have access to masks when everything started back in April of 2020. So people started making their own masks, and volunteer armies got together. Audrey's army has made tens of thousands of masks now. So we were making them and handing them out to people who couldn't make them or get them on their own. And so we were given 4 or 5 different types, and we didn't know if they worked or not. So when you have someone making them on their own, there wasn't like a company that tested it, or it didn't go through any formal testing. So we wanted to come up with a way to be sure that the masks that we were giving away, most people making them at home with 2 or 3 layers of 2 layers of cotton usually. And so it was really a question of, is what we were doing really working or not? And that's why I contacted Dr. Martin, who came up with this idea rather quickly to figure out, well, maybe we can measure the particles, and that would be an indicator that the masks do work.
So when we are looking at how the particles work, we said that we were using a laser. And what exactly does the laser do?
The laser. So basically, when a little particle, even a dust particle, when it goes through a light beam, it could be a flashlight, could be a laser. The light goes in a certain direction, right? It comes out of let's say a flashlight. You hold the flashlight here, you shine it across. Yeah, wonderful. So the light goes in a certain direction, and if you don't actually look right at the light, you don't see the light, right? The light just goes through it. It doesn't, you don't see it if you don't look directly at it. However, if you have a little piece in the light, a little droplet or a little dust particle, the light comes on it, and then that particle will redirect the light towards your eyes, or actually in all directions. And you can see some of that by looking at so you see the light that gets redirected, right, from its original light path into your eye, or maybe a camera. And of course, generally the bigger the particle, the more light you will see, right? And we had a really nice sensitive camera. Our cell phone cameras is really, really sensitive, especially if it's in the dark, if it's no background, right? Everything was dark, except for that little particle that then redirects light towards it. And then we can see even little tiny particles, much smaller than the size of a hair.
That's amazing. I think that I'm going to get my experiment kind of started. I see that we have some more really good questions in the chat here, but I wanted to try my hand, and I wanted you all at home to try your hand at doing an experiment kind of like this, kind of like the one we just explained. I'm going to go over to my jar cam, which is actually behind me. So I'm going to switch cameras there. And I have three things, but at home you might just have, right, a mister, a little sprayer like this. And I have that flashlight I was using earlier. I also, since I knew that Dr. Martin used a laser, I have a weak laser of my own, a little laser pointer here. So I was going to start with this, right? We want to create our light beam and then introduce some droplets to it. So here's my light beam, right? We can see that the laser pointer is on, but you can't see that beam of light coming out. It's not like a lightsaber, right? We can't really see it, even though we know it's on. So what I'm going to do is I've got my laser pointer on, and I'm going to spray some of my droplets, and I want you all to tell me what you see. Oops, let me get it in the frame there. There we go. What do you think, friends? Yeah, exactly. We are seeing this beam of light. So kind of like in spy movies where they have to get fast laser sensors, right? We can see how the droplets for just a moment kind of bounce that light around so that we can see the beam. And these droplets are pretty large, so they sink fairly quickly, right? But it still allows us to see how they move around. And I'm gonna do it using a flashlight as well. If any of you at home have a flashlight that you want to test it with, I'd love to do it along with you. You can kind of see my flashlight's on. Like we were saying, we can't see the beam until we have something for that beam to bounce off of. There we go. So there's how my droplets are illuminating that beam. And I think you might even be able to do it with a bright window or any other sort of direct light emitting device. What do you think, Dr. Eric and Dr. Martin? Does that compare to your test at all?
That's a perfect demonstration, Peregrine. So yeah. Imagine now, instead of your bright wood background, you take a black curtain, right, to make the light even stand out even more. And also your puff was very dense, right? There was tons of particles, so you could see the whole beam, you can see a line, right? Imagine now you had only a couple of droplets coming out of your mouth. So what you see in our experiment instead is you see little individual flashes. You see little streaks, little dots, instead of a whole light beam. So, but the principle is exactly what you described. So now imagine you were fast enough to count all those little particles. That's exactly what we do.
And we had a good addition in the chat saying, someone saying that it reminds her of car headlights in the rain or in the fog. It's kind of a similar idea. Mm-hmm. I was going to see if I could test my mask here. I have that mask that I have before that's held between two tongs, and it's held upright in a jar. So I'm going to kind of turn it. Let's see, I'll turn it this way. And I'm going to test my mask, right? But this isn't the same as the tests that you all are doing, right? And what are some, obviously, the differences in the lasers, but also, right, since my droplets are so much larger, they're probably going to be blocked by just about anything. What do you think? We can always find out. What I've got is my laser pointer here, and I'm pointing it down, and we're gonna see if this will work here. I'm gonna spray my spray here. And it's a little hard to see, but I can see that there's kind of a way that it's blocking it. You certainly cannot see the laser coming through, even though I'm pointing it right down this way and spraying the spray directly down. It's not really illuminating that laser.
Can you show it without the mask now?
Oh yeah. So let's see it without the mask. See that, let me make sure that this is in frame first. There we go. Oops, am I in frame?
No.
Let's see, I'm gonna do it sideways instead of up and down. Oops.
And somehow it's not in the frame.
We're in a frame, bummer.
There, oh, there it is.
There we go. Sorry about that, friends. Thank you. There we go. So that is it without the mask. Finally in frame now.
You know, and Martin, can you explain, you know, the light is there all the time. You know, it is like those car lights in the fog because the light's there all the time. It's the particles that allow you to see the light.
Right.
Which
Actually,
that seems backwards to me.
Right. So unfortunately, I can't share my screen right now, but imagine you had this light going right in front of your eyes, right? You can't actually see it because there's nothing there that can redirect the light. So even though it's right in front of your face, you couldn't see it. Even if it's completely dark, you couldn't see the light because nothing actually redirects the light into your eyes. But now imagine you had these droplets going through. Now suddenly a droplet comes in front of you, it hits the light, and then suddenly the light bounces off right all over the place and you can see it. So the light, as Dr. Eric said, the light's always on, right? Your laser beam was always on. There just wasn't anything that could make it visible, that could make it bounce it towards your eyes. And those droplets do exactly that. They just redirect it.
I love that. It kind of speaks to how there's always stuff going on. It's just a matter of whether or not we can observe it. That helps us know what's happening. And it sounds like you all have figured out a way for us to observe what we were not able to before.
Right.
I just wanted to try and get to maybe one or two of our really amazing questions before the end here. About once you sneeze or talk, how long are the particles kind of floating in the air? Were you able to measure that over time? Or was it just kind of the number of particles?
Right, so in our experiment, we didn't study that. This was a limitation of what we did. We just spoke into a box and all the particles just stopped there. Now, other people have looked at sneezes and coughs, and they can go, 10, 15 feet, depending on how much of a cough it was. And so I think it's farther than that 6-foot thing. If someone's sick, you want to give them some distance. Of course, they probably don't have the COVID-19, but you want to be safe on the safe side. But our study limitation was we just used a box, so we couldn't comment on how far it went.
Oh, the box was only so big. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. And then we had just a quick question before we wrap about, should we sanitize our hands before we take off our mask after we go to the store?
I don't every time, but then I'm very careful. I've been trained as a doctor. I don't touch my face. I don't twirl my fingers in my hair or anything. So, if you do that kind of thing, it's always good to sanitize or wash just when you're thinking about it. So when I am out and about, I am very careful not to touch anything. Don't touch my face, my eyes, my mask, if at all possible. And then when I'm at home, I do my good, in 20 seconds, I do a lot of hand washing before I get inside. And so I don't personally do that, but if you're worried about it, you're not sure, I guess if you're not used to taking care of yourself like that, yeah, go ahead.
So maybe if we're still practicing not touching our face so much, it's always good to be overcautious.
Yeah.
can always help. That makes sense to me. That's wonderful. So, and kind of to tie into what you were saying earlier, there have been different kinds of studies about how far these droplets can go. There's studies about how long they hang around in the air. So the best thing that we can do while we're still waiting for a lot of this evidence to emerge is to make sure that as few droplets get out of us as possible, right? So instead of sneezing a shoo into the air, we can have something that covers up and catches our droplets, because the droplets are what the virus rides on, right? So it's less that it traps the virus inside or it keeps the virus outside. It just keeps the droplets that carry the virus from going from person to person.
Yeah. And Martin, maybe you can comment, what happens inside is different than outdoors. So, and now that, real scientists are looking at all of the dynamics, even, it depends how the air is circulating, and what is your understanding about that, Dr. Martin?
Right. There's so many things that come into this, right? Once the particles are out, where they go depends on how big these droplets are. As I said, the big ones, they might just go to the floor, they might stick to a wall. The little ones are sometimes the more dangerous ones, almost, because they have an easier time being carried away. And if you're out in the woods somewhere, you have fun, you're on the playground and nobody's around, well, even if they travel a little bit of a distance, it doesn't really matter, because there's nobody there who can take them up, right? If you're somewhere inside with people that you usually not around, for example, if you're at a party, right, and nobody's wearing a mask, and you dance with somebody, or you're really up close, then of course you have a better chance of catching these loose particles. That are the particles that they're on the loose, right? They float around, and because you don't see them, you can't step out of the way, right? If it's something big and you can see them, you can sort of avoid it. But of course, because you don't see them, you can't tell where they are.
That's a great addition, right? So yeah, exactly. We can't see them. We can't know exactly where they are. There's so many different variables, like how currents of air are moving in the room or outside. There's so much going on. Isn't it just better to be safe and wear a mask to keep your droplets in and to keep other people's droplets in and away from you?
Absolutely.
That's wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and also have my friend Max join us as well for our very end as we say goodbye here.
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, Peregrine, Dr. Eric and Dr. Martin, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I also want to thank everybody who's joining our experiment and watching from home. And I want to thank you especially because this week's topic and the topics we're tackling next week and the week after are about COVID-19. They are about our pandemic. And there's a few things that I wanted to say about that. One of them is, I think it's really important that you decided to spend some time thinking and talking about this topic today, because one of the most important things going on in the world right now is a science topic. And so becoming more informed and learning all that you can about it is a really, really good and important thing for you to be doing right now. In just a moment, I want to give my friends, Dr. Eric and Dr. Martin, a chance to give their last thoughts about this. But I'll give one more about something that I have learned and thought a lot about today. First of all, as we talk about COVID-19, I want to reiterate and really stress that it is okay and it is understandable to feel confused and to feel stressed, and maybe even to feel scared and sad. This is all of our first pandemic. And it's really important that we all continue to learn together. And that's part of the spirit of what we're trying to do here in Lab at Home. One of the other things I wanted to touch on, especially about today, since we're talking about masks, is that I bet you, like me, don't love wearing masks. They are not the most comfortable fashion accessory. But It's really important to do the right thing and to do the thing that will not only protect you, but also your family and friends, even when it's a difficult thing to do. And so I can't say how much I think everybody who is wearing that mask, even while it is uncomfortable, is doing a really, really good and brave thing to protect the people around them. With that, I'd love for Dr. Martin and Dr. Eric to give their last thoughts. And Dr. Martin, earlier you said something that really took my breath away. So I'm going to pose this question to you again. What do you think the best mask is to wear?
Well, the best mask to wear is the mask you wear, right? So there's lots of debate, lots of arguments of, well, which mask is better, which mask is worse. The worst mask out there is the one that you don't wear, right? A mask that's hanging off down here, that's a mask that doesn't work very well, right? The mask that's hanging off your ear, it's not going to do much when you sneeze either, right? So the fact that you guys actually are interested in this shows me that you care, that you do want a mask. I saw lots of those little answers when Peregrine asked you who wears a mask. And I was so happy to see all of you guys say, yes, 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 I do. That's awesome. So wear a mask and wear it again.
Mm-hmm. And what about yourself, Dr. Eric?
Sure. Well, in the big picture, I became a doctor because I could use science. I really liked science, looking at microscope and telescopes and all sorts of things like Dr. Martin does every day. I don't do that every day now. I help people using that science. And there's a group of medicine and science called public health. And the public health people have known for a long time that wearing masks, washing hands, staying away from people at a safe distance is the way to stop this contagious disease that's going on right now. So these are really important things, and it's a scientific thing and a part of medicine to keep everyone safe and healthy.
That is a fantastic message, and I appreciate so much both of you being here to talk to us. I know that you've been talking to a lot of different people, a lot of different places about a lot of different things, so I really appreciate you taking the time to do a program with the Museum of Life and Science and with all of our awesome viewers here today.
It was my pleasure. And by the way, I want to thank the viewers, most likely the kids out there. The fact that you are doing this, the fact that you're watching tells me that you're really interested in science, and I want to thank your parents for allowing you to do this. This is what's important. We need to have interested kids to listen to guys and then to try some stuff out yourself.
Exactly. We always encourage you trying stuff out yourself. And we're actually, this is going to be just our first program. The next two we are having on Lab at Home will be about some other measures that Dr. Eric mentioned. We talked about masks. We'll also have the next lab on hand washing, and then we'll have the one after that about social distancing, so we can learn about the ways that science has proven that we have the power to keep ourselves and other people safe. I see that we have so many other really, really interesting questions, and I think we're going to try and get those answered, potentially answered next time, or we might be able to address some of them in our post-lab email. But we've kept you, I think we've kept you after, so I want to respect Dr. Eric and Dr. Martin's time. Thank you all so much for being here, and I look forward to seeing you again, to seeing viewers again next week. Awesome. Thank you so much, friends.
Pleasure. Thank you, everyone.